Marcus is, as I always say, our visionary, our genius behind the product.
We have did much more work on the scientific basis of Healy, and especially on the question, how can we explain how Healy works, on which level Healy works, frequencies work, what is the information field, what is the bioenergetic field, all these questions. We have worked out new models to explain it in a simple way, but not in a too simple way. So I want to take you on a small journey through some of the stations now. And the first station is something which will challenge you a little. What I'm presenting here is not really mainstream science, but it's something like what's called emerging science. It's like on the frontiers of science, but there are many great scientists, also Nobel laureates, who are thinking about this terminology which I'm using here. So it's not yet there at the universities, but it's a little ahead of its time. So if you look at this picture, maybe in the beginning it looks bewildering, but then if you understand the structure, it shows you, it gives you a clear insight about the ideas and the worldview behind Healy. And here you see Healy in the very center. In the very center of this picture is Healy. So what is the center? The center is a level which I call the quantum processes. So the level of the quantum processes is dividing our world in two halves. One half is below, we just can call it matter. And the other half is above, we call it information. Matter and information are not really two different things, but they are actually one. Information can manifest as matter, and matter can be explained as information. Actually, that's a very, very most important lesson of quantum physics, is that matter on its deepest level is information, and information through energy transforms constantly into matter. So we can look at this world as matter, but we can look at the world from another perspective as information. And quantum physics actually looks at this world more as information than on matter. But we experience the world as matter with our senses, but our senses are gathering information about this world. So in a way, this reality in which we are living is a constant transformation of energy in information, information into energy, energy into matter, and matter into information. It's a process, a very creative process, where these three very fundamental aspects of reality, matter, energy, and information, are transformed into each other. And the main transformator between matter and information, this is what we call quantum processes. So let's look at matter. Matter has two aspects. The first aspect is our molecular body. This we all know from school. Our body consists of molecules which are connected by chemical forces and interact through electrons, but they also interact through photons. So these are two aspects of our electromagnetic body. The electromagnetic body is a field which permeates our whole body. It's more subtle than the molecules of our body, but these fields are controlling our body. So it's electrical fields and electrical energy on the lower side, and the upper side, it's quantum fields of light, or quantum electromagnetic fields. This is what we call the biophotons. So all of this together makes up the way how we visualize matter here. It's a molecular aspect of our body, and this is the electromagnetic aspect, which has an electrical aspect and a very subtle aspects of biophotons. So we will talk a little later about the electrical aspect, which we have very much focused always in our explanations about Healy regarding the cell membrane potential. The cells are really the most important units within our body. And the cells produce the energy which we are using in our body. And they produce this energy in the form of ATP, which is something like the fuel of the cells. And in this becomes the fuel of the body. It creates the heat. It creates our ability to move, everything. But the cells can only produce the ATP if they have a strong electrical potential. It's like a battery. It needs a voltage. So our cell membrane have a voltage. This is the basic electrical unit which we are using. But above this, our cells communicate with each other through photons. This is electromagnetic radiation. And those photons, which have a very specific biological meaning, are called biophotons. They are quantum, photons are also quantum-like, but they're creating a coherent quantum field, which is like an aura, but this is actually a scientific field, permeates our whole body and controls many of the biochemical and biophysical processes. So that's the visible material world. But on top of it, this material substances of our systems are permeated by information fields, which through quantum processes guide the movements of the electrons, the movements of the body, guide the chemical reactions. This is all done within the information field, which very nature is quantum entanglement. So quantum entanglement, it's a very specific term from quantum physics, but I want to give you a very clear idea what it is. If you have two things, like the Healy and the small statue, if they are once connected in a quantum process, even if they move very far away from each other and are separated, they will be still connected by quantum entanglement. This is something which we know it's true for photons, it's true for electrons, but it's generally true for everything which once had a connection with each other, that it will stay connected in a generalized sense. So, but this means that all the things in this world have a kind of relationship which is hidden. It's hidden because we analyze this world in terms of separate objects, and we can only do this by losing the information of wholeness. So to get this information of wholeness back into the picture, we need the information field, which very nature is quantum entanglements, as a complementation of our material worldview. Otherwise, we end up in a world which doesn't make any sense anymore, where we cannot connect body back to the mind and the spirit, which is very much necessary to make meaning out of this world. So we have the information field up here, we have the material body up here, and in between we have the quantum processes. And this is where Healy operates, because Healy in its very center, it's something like on the back of the Healy hardware. It has what we call a quantum sensor. It's actually a physical noise generator, which through entanglements connects the information fields with the material aspect of our organism. So the Healy analyzes on this level of the quantum processes, it analyzes constantly which frequencies shall be applied to achieve two goals. And these two goals are very clearly shown in this graphic. There's one arrow going down and one arrow going up. It's actually the same arrow which has two directions, but this makes it very clear. From Healy comes microcurrent. Microcurrent is electrical current which has a very, very low amplitude. The amplitude is so small that you can hardly feel it, but it's high enough so that our cells can recognize this microcurrent and it's of the same amplitude as the currents which our body produces itself. For example, if we cut ourselves, the body is producing very low amplitude of current to support the healing. So this is the same principle. We are using the microcurrent, which is coming from Healy with the low frequencies to affect the electromagnetic body, especially on the level of the cell membrane, but also on the higher levels. The low frequencies work very much down to the border between the electrical field and the body, and the little higher frequencies work higher up. But then the higher frequencies, they work in this direction. They work towards the bioenergetic field. The bioenergetic field is that part of the information field which relates to our body through bioenergy. Bioenergy is chi in Chinese tradition, or prana in Indian tradition, but it's actually flows of quantum information and quantum energy which connects the information field with the material aspect of our being. So the Healy is really placed in the middle, and through the two ways how the microcurrent frequencies operates, connects the information field to the material aspect of our existence. So I want to show you, I can move myself in this direction. Look at this simple picture. It's a simplified version of the diagram which we just looked at. We still have the Healy in the center, and from the Healy we have microcurrent frequencies going in two directions. One direction is the microcurrent with the low frequencies, where the microcurrent itself is more predominant. And the other is the microcurrent with the high frequencies, where the frequencies are in the foreground. They are more predominant. So looking down, the low frequency modulated microcurrent actually aims at the cell, at the cellular level, with the goal to increase the cellular energy. Whereas the frequencies, the higher frequencies, they aim at the bioelectrical field, the bioenergetic field, and they are designed to harmonize the bioenergetic field. But the bioenergetic field is active in the environment of the cell, and the cell is active within the environment of the bioenergetic field. So the fields are within the body, and the body is within the fields. This is the wisdom of this ancient Taoistic symbol, which gives us such a deep insight into how this world is organized. That within the material we find the spiritual, and within the spiritual we find the material. Or within the matter we find the information field, and within the information field we find matter. It's not two things, it's two sides of the same coin. Or here we have it as the two aspects of reality. And the symbolism of this yin and yang symbol is very clearly, if you look at it, it's a vibration or it's a frequency. So how does matter and information talk to each other? Through transfer of energy. And this transfer of energy can only happen through frequency and amplitude. So frequency is really the most important property of the energy flow which connects information field and matter. The goal of this science is really to connect body, mind, and soul, to connect information, matter, and energy in one big picture. So this is one aspect of what we are working on and have been working on to make Healy, give you a deeper insight into how Healy functions. There are many details I won't talk about today, but I just want to show you two new pictures. We have talked a lot about the cell membrane potential. The cell membrane potential is actually the voltage at the cell membrane. And remember, you all saw this diagram in a different way already. here we're presenting it in a new way because we want to be more precise scientifically. In the old graph, it was not wrong, but it was giving average values. And here, the average values are replaced by areas. For example, the healthy young cell starts at minus 90 millivolt and goes up to minus 45 millivolt. So that's all the range in which the healthy young cell can operate. Like a liver cell normally is around 45 millivolt, whereas a muscle cell needs a higher action potential of minus 90 millivolt, and all the other cells are in between. So this is a more precise idea, presentation of the same idea. So at minus 45 millivolt, uncontrolled cell division starts. So this is the area we really want to avoid. And in between minus 60 and minus 30 millivolt, we have the cell which starts to age, which develops symptoms of sickness and starts to cause pain. So this is a gradual process which starts with a young and healthy cell, and through a gradual process goes until 0 millivolt, which actually means that the cell is dying. And here we have areas where inflammation or ischemic situations or pains are predominant. This model actually goes back to two great researchers, Robert Becker and Björn Norderstrom, and especially Björn Norderstrom. Both of them are amazing pioneers with a very strong standing in the scientific community. Björn Nordenström was even the former chairman of the Nobel Prize Committee for Medicine. Now I want to show you another diagram which will also be a part of the company presentation in future, because we're talking about the cell, and not everyone really still has a very clear about how a cell is actually composed. So here you see the cell membrane, and the cell membrane itself, it's not conductive, so it's not conducting electricity. It's like, yeah. So outside the cell, we have a positive potential, and inside the cell, we have a negative potential. That's the meaning of why we are saying a minus 90 millivolt, why the cell membrane potential is negative, because inside the cell, the intracellular space, it's charged negatively. So this creates the cell membrane potential, which is up to minus 90 millivolt. But the cell membrane potential is not the only membrane potential in the cell, because inside the cell, we have the mitochondria. The mitochondria are the little power stations of the cell, and actually they are producing the ATP, and they have the mitochondria have their own membrane potential, which is even higher. It's minus 150 millivolt. So when the cell membrane potential of the cell is strong, we can also expect a strong membrane potential at the mitochondria. And this is exactly the place where the ATP production takes place, where the cell produces the energy which we need for moving and for living. So actually, I have done a lot of research on the state of science on the cell membrane potential, and on the mitochondria, and they all indicate that microcurrent, with especially the low frequencies, can be supportive for both of this membrane potential, for the cell membrane potential itself and for the membrane potential of the mitochondria also. So here we have a very good model to explain how the microcurrent dominant aspect of Healy works, whereas the Nununina programs of the Healy, they are mainly focusing on the effect of the frequencies on the bioenergetic field. So we are relying, when we use Healy, on both of these effects. We want to harmonize with the higher frequencies the bioenergetic field, and with the lower frequency microcurrent, we want to support the cellular energy. And all this together gives a very strong basis to the effect of the Healy. I found there is a very interesting way to measure the cell membrane potential non-invasively by measuring the bioimpedance and a related parameter from the bioimpedance, which is called the phase angle. So we have done lots of experiments here in our laboratory and have seen that actually the low microcurrent frequencies applied by Healy, they can increase this. So we found a new way to measure actually how microcurrent frequencies can increase the cellular membrane potential. So there's a lot of new things coming up, and we will keep you informed about the process, and most of the things we will also publish in the network. So thank you very much for listening. I hope this was not too technical and too detailed, but if you're already using Healy, you have a right to know the background, a little about the science and of it, and I see my main duty in doing this.
Thank you very much, Marcus. I really want to give you a short update in regards to sales. As you know, we are already in the second year now in 45 countries worldwide. Recently, in 1st of May, the last country joined, the United States. It became rapidly growing and already is our biggest market around the world. But also all our other markets are in Europe, in Asia, are performing very well. And on one side, I know that Marcus has the goal, and we all do, to have in a couple of years 100 million households using our Healy. The 100 is kind of a magical number because we have also for this year, for 2020 only, the goal to reach 100 million in sales. And I can tell you, we're way ahead of track when we think about being in the end of July. Our revenue goal for this year, which we are very positive that we probably even overachieve. So again, thank you for doing this.